You are listening to WHOA Podcast, coming to you from Gainesville, Florida. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the WHOA GNV Podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa. Today on the show, we have Melissa Muller, General Manager of Curia on the Drag. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful.
And with her, we have Sabrina Kaar, girl boss extraordinaire of Chua Vintage. She 100% asked me to say that. Girl boss extraordinaire. I love it. I love it. I always send out a little email saying, hey, how do you guys want me to introduce you on the show? Now, I'll be honest, the paragraphs are getting kind of long. And I'm like, I try to keep it brief and short. So I love girl boss extraordinaire. But what I'm going to ask you guys to do really quick, but I want you to tell your stories. But before we really get into that, I just want you to give us the 60-second version of what you do. So Melissa, when we start with you.
Okay. Well, General Manager of Curia, what does that mean? It means things like getting asked the day before to come into a podcast and sit down and talk about all the amazing things that are about to happen. I am like essentially the ultimate coordinator for the entire property of Curia, which most people don't know is much more than just the coffee shop. There's on the drag, there's off the drag, there's about to be a few more exciting things coming in. And so that is essentially what I'm doing, is running around the property either.
Okay. So for people who might not even know what Curia on the Drag is, why don't you just give them the brief description of what it is?
Yeah, so Curia on the Drag is actually a complex that's south of Ward's on 6th Street, and it's got about 5 buildings on it. The main kind of draw to Curia is our coffee shop, Curia on the Drag. And it's at one point was also like an artist's residence and other things, so it's evolved over time. Another main draw was Curia Off the Drag, which was our vegan restaurant in the back, and that's pretty much what we're known for.
Cool. I'll tell you that my general manager and I right now, we have a meeting at Curia every Friday at 9 a.m. It's our little leadership time. It's when he and I get together, because I've been spending a lot of time outside of New Scooters for Less, outside of the dealership right now, working on a new company, and so that's our like collaborative like get together and talk about things time. So I absolutely love it over there. Love the atmosphere. And I don't even know if you know this, but so New Scooters for Less has a vlog, and it's called NS4L TV, and Curia was actually in episode number 2, and the title of the episode is called Raptor Selfie. Because there's this like raptor over there on the property that you can't help but go over there and take your picture. Have you taken your picture with the raptor?
Yeah, so the raptor was actually featured on Best of Gainesville, the first picture ever.
Really? The first picture ever?
My dog and the raptor.
It's the first picture ever?
Yeah, first picture ever.
All right.
Trying to find
that's cool.
it right
Are you?
Yeah.
I want to see this picture.
That would be an amazing. I also do all of our social media at Curia, and something I would love is if like everyone in Gainesville could send me their selfie with the raptor, and I would post it like a day. Every day another selfie would be up. It would be.
I'll definitely find. I mean, ours was a video, but I had to have a picture of it somewhere.
You can spread the word.
Yeah. It was awesome. So, Sabrina, so how about you? Like, give us the 60-second version of what Chua Vintage is.
Well, it's a vintage clothing shop run and owned by me. We've been in business for a year now, and we are located on the property with Curia. And we've evolved we have a social media presence, we sell clothing, and we also run an evening market, which is basically a pop-up market to support other local vendors. And we're about to move over and have some new changes coming up. So
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, you just got a note passed in the building that Ty needs to move his car.
Oh, no.
So, are you going to move it for him?
Yeah.
Do you mind if she moves it for you?
Well,
Yeah, it's just a little weird.
This is great. This is what I love about the podcast. So everybody who's listening, there's a scooter shop here, obviously, if you know anything about this place yet. And
Another mic is clear.
Okay.
It's just strange. It doesn't work.
this is fantastic. I'm so glad this is happening right now. And
We're-
of
we're
course,
real
we have a
people, too.
scooter. We have a scooter shipment that decided to arrive on the same morning of the recording, and that's entrepreneurship at its finest.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say. So, Ty, now that we've got the
Yes,
car
where
stuff
are we?
going on, what's happening in your world, man? Best of Gainesville. Gosh, I have to say, I don't know. We talked about football and stuff.
Yeah.
Not too long ago. It's definitely looking a little bit better.
Yeah.
Feeling a little confident.
It's like we're gonna get a real October. Now we're in October.
Yeah, right.
We're winning. Got some home games coming up. There's been already like 4 or 5 Oktoberfests in town. There's a few more coming up this week. I think when people think of Gainesville at its greatest, they think of October, November, when football is going well and it's getting a little cooler and there's tons of events that compete against each other. But it's there's so much to do in town coming up, and it's an exciting time. We got some cool stuff going on at Best of Gainesville, and it's just there's a lot of energy in the town, which is fun.
Are there any events that you can tell us about? Like, when's this gonna air? Probably going into November, right?
Yeah.
So anything going on in November yet?
I'll have more stuff for us next week.
Okay.
I know this week there's some cool stuff going on, but
What, like literally this week?
yeah, Hale's Oktoberfest. I think their 19th annual over in the Hale Village is going on. So there's like 15 food trucks, all sorts of cool stuff.
We should try to look at the calendars
Yeah,
before we know that these are going to air.
Definitely.
Because again, everybody's who's listening probably knows that we record these a couple weeks out because we're trying to make a really, really cool production. We're going to get some awesome B-roll and video of the businesses and that kind of thing. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's not like record and then put it out the next day. But we're going to start looking at the calendar and try to like really have some awesome info for everybody who's listening.
yeah. Especially now
that'd be
that we're on
cool.
about a 2-week instead
Yeah.
of a 6-week.
Yeah.
Makes it a little
It's a
easier.
little bit easier now that
Yeah.
we're not trying to like cram all these episodes in going into
Yeah, for sure.
back to school time.
Yeah.
But New Scooters Flesh just hit a record with September. I mean,
Congrats.
we hit over 100 units in the month of September, which is the most and I don't even know what the exact was. I just got the text or the message like, hey, we hit over 100 units. So it was a crazy September.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is fantastic, and man, I'm just pumped for quarter 4. I'm just excited to see. Do you guys get excited about quarter 4? Are you like?
Being in the food and beverage industry, I think that it's very exciting, but we also know that it's about to be the most insane time of the year for
Yeah.
us, where, and it's not like a order ahead of time or prepare ahead of time. It's like just more people in the shop every single day, and so
Yeah.
it's.
Is it just because of
super
holidays
thrilling.
and stuff? Like
Yeah,
a lot of people are just in and out.
Yeah, and you know what is so interesting, right? Is summertime, as we know, for a lot of Gainesville entrepreneurs, is a very quiet time because the students leave, and so we try to get creative. But over the holidays, students stay or totally collaborate, and it just becomes like this kind of mad rush for. I mean, it's it's gift cards. It's what new recipes can we bring to the table. It's whatever it is, but it brings in a ton of great business. It's just a little frantic sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sabrina, what about you? I mean, do you guys are you expecting like a pickup with the holidays? They're showing the Raptor selfie here.
Oh, the Raptor.
Or the Raptor, not Raptor
the
selfie,
dog.
but first best of Gainesville post was the Raptor at Curia.
You should
Yeah.
share
Make
that.
sure-
I'll repost it
Yeah.
anytime.
Make sure we get that, and you can show it on the video for everybody
Yeah.
who's like send us a
He's
screenshot of that
definitely
whole
our
thing or
biggest
something.
fan. He's there all the time.
Yeah, that's cool. But for the holidays and stuff coming in, like, are you guys like it's not, is it student based? Like, how would you describe it?
Well, since we're still we just went into our first year, one of the things is creating foot traffic and getting people to know what our business was. So, and what I sell is not necessarily gift friendly. I'm selling vintage clothing. So, it's hard to buy a vintage piece for someone else unless you have a really good eye. And so, we'll see as this holiday season comes. Like last year, that wasn't really my busy time. My busy time was more going into the spring. But as we're broadening our customer base and we're getting better known, I feel like it might pick up a little bit. So, just staying optimistic about it and seeing where it goes,
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, the one thing that we really like to do to start the show is I like to like go back in time, right? So, because I know Melissa, you say you were a lawyer at one point, even, right? I mean, I like to hear how things kind of unfolded to lead you to starting a vintage clothing store, and why, and then how you became the manager over at Curia, like just kind of the origin story, if you will. If you'll take us in time a little bit and give us that story. So Sabrina, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Well, I grew up in Gainesville. I am an ACR. I went to college here, got my history degree at UF. I graduated. I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and lived there for 7 years. As I was there, I was working at a vintage clothing shop, and so that's where I got my first experience working in this business. At the same time, I was going to accounting school. I'm also a background in accounting, and that's how I moved back to Gainesville. Was I got a job at UF working as an accountant. It wasn't really necessarily the right field for me. I think I needed something a little more creative, but still using all of those skills that I learned, and that's really like having a vintage clothing store is really me taking my history degree and my accounting degree and putting it together. So I stopped working at UF in February 2017, and I started doing pop-ups, which is basically bringing my clothes, setting up for the day, and then going home, which was great, and it was like getting my name out there. And then in June of 2017, I got asked to move into the space at Curia, and here we are now.
Cool. I mean, did you have a passion for clothing? Like, what led to this specifically?
Well, I mean, I've always been interested in clothing since I was young, and vintage clothing too. As a teenager, my parents didn't give me a bunch of money to go spend at the mall. It was kind of like, kind of got to make do with what you got. And
right.
So I would go thrifting, and I always appreciated vintage. I was kind of melding both of those, and that's kind of, if you go to my store, it's not just like in the sense like this, typical vintage store, just like cluttered full of just like really amazing stuff, but just like really cluttered, really collected. It's very curated, and it's like the direction is more about fashion and self-expression versus just the period pieces of these clothing. So it's a little different in that aspect. So I think, it does bring my love for clothing and fashion, but like bringing these old pieces together and, just having both things come together.
Has the accounting degree helped a lot?
Yeah, I mean, like knowing
are
the
you doing all
language
your-
of business is essential,
Yeah. I mean, are you doing your own bookkeeping and stuff?
Yeah,
or?
I do. I don't want to do my own bookkeeping, but I do my own bookkeeping. Like knowing the language for going into business is super important. I don't know if I necessarily needed to know all the nitty gritty about accounting to have a business,
Right.
but I don't regret going and getting that degree. Like I am glad that I have a business degree and a liberal arts degree.
Cool.
Yeah.
Melissa, how about you?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I actually went to college at Stetson University, which is over in DeLand, Florida, for all you Floridians. I was not familiar with DeLand, Florida, but I played volleyball there, and so I went there to pursue my scholarship and go to college for free. Studied journalism and law and a couple different languages, some neat things to kind of just like see where my interests were. And went to law school in Chicago, and so I sometimes will say I was a lawyer, but I actually am a lawyer. It doesn't go away unless you do something really bad. So I'm still a lawyer, but I don't practice. I have an inactive license, so don't ask me to do anything legal for you. I won't. But it's a kind of similar story actually to Sabrina, where I practiced for half a decade. I worked for a great law firm that was incredible for a new attorney starting out and learning, but it was definitely a system that was frustrating and a little cold and challenging as a woman, to be completely honest. And so I had a young child at the time. I had my son in law school, so it was just constantly this work-life balance that I knew I could, for being a type A person, also try to incorporate more creativity in my life. And I knew I didn't have to always wear a suit or heels to really be effective in business. And so I kind of quit at a very kind of fast transition in my life and said, that's okay, I'm not going to do it anymore. So I retired at 30 and went and farmed for a couple years to kind of get out in the dirt, and then knew that I had really exciting big ideas that I wanted to help evolve with a business. And Curia is someplace that I've always gone and I just admire, because it's always been willing to be innovative and a little risky, particularly when it comes to business. And it's an entire property. There's just so much potential in one space that's like, Gainesville needs as many things like that as we can, and I feel like we're very open to it as a customer base. And so I knew Nick a little bit from the time, the owner of Curia, and we had a lot of kind of long, slow discussions about what would work. And eventually I jumped on board in May, and we've just gone full big picture since then, and it's been amazing.
So I sent out just a couple of questions just ahead of time, just to kind of get a feel for our guests, because a lot of the guests I've never met before. I haven't met you guys before, and in here, you said that you were hired in May, and then I was studying when you said at the time the owner Nick Moskowitz, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, there can't be that many Nicks. And Nick Moskowitz is in Gainesville, right? So I'm like, so if it's the same one, I'm 100. I sold a Nick Moskowitz a scooter, me personally, years ago. So it's got to be the same person. So
sure.
So tell him I said hi and thanks for buying a scooter from us a long time ago. When you made that transition from a lawyer to farming, you said, right?
Right.
I mean, how quick was that? Matter of days, weeks, months?
A couple months. I had a house still that I had in Gainesville in town. So I sold my house. I sold about 95% of my belongings and picked my son up and moved out to a good friend of mine's farm out in Alachua and farmed.
Did you already know Nick? What got you to Curia?
I didn't know Nick at the time, but we have some friends in common, and so I had been around him socially, and he's actually also the owner of Thread Pit, which is an incredible enterprise that started here in Gainesville. And is still doing incredibly well, and Curia kind of was his heartstrings were tugged. He loves Gainesville, and Thread Pit had done really well, and he was interested in starting something that was a little more personally connected for him in Gainesville that supported our community. And so through being at Curia often, I met him that way, and we just kind of met equal kind of at equal levels intellectually and conceptually, and started talking. And we had a good friend too that was like, you guys should really work together. I mean, this is going to be good. And we were like, all right, we could try that one. Yeah.
What's so now that you've left lawyer life and you're doing this, what's been the biggest eye-opening moment for you?
Well, I think that how much translates over is really remarkable for me.
Really? Does a lot of it?
It really does, because when I was practicing law, I was a trial attorney, so there was a lot of direct interaction and dealing with conflict in creative ways. And there was a lot of people management. I had a caseload of 50 or more clients at a time, and so I was constantly advising people in their lives on how to, move forward after something had happened. And similarly here, I'm juggling so many people and so many things that I'm constantly, really, my main job is helping people and myself evolve within the business, which in Gainesville is the number one, I think, really priority, or should be, you know, and a lot of successful small businesses here have recognized that. Yeah.
What's been your biggest challenge since, you know,
Managing people.
managing people?
Yeah, same
So
thing.
kind of going to the same thing.
Yeah, and it's not because people are difficult. It's just that people are complex, and we were just talking about this on the drive over, Sabrina and I, where, you know, these are service-oriented people, and often they're misinterpreted, you know, and I have working for me people who are artists, they're professors, they're entrepreneurs in their own way, they're musicians, they're incredible people, and they're balancing often one or more jobs and other parts of their lives. And so being open to people like going through their process and also keeping the business first is my biggest challenge, but it's really helped me grow as a human in huge ways.
How large is the team?
Well, we have a staff of about 11 right now, and that includes baristas, that includes our bakers, our grab-and-go chefs and back in the kitchen. But we're about to collaborate, or we are collaborating. We have been,
collaborating.
and about to start something. This will actually be a good time. November sometime this podcast is going to air. Is that-
Yeah. Do you know the air date? I should like really write this stuff down.
I've got it somewhere.
It's okay.
Yeah.
We can go with November, but that's been my like kind of most proud role here as general manager, is the opportunity to like see incredible people, entrepreneurial wise, and really women. I mean, this is the year of the woman again, and so Sabrina and a few other businesses have basically, we've all collaborated, and where the restaurant used to be in the back is going to be what's called the off market, and it's going to be really this cooperative
Yeah.
retail space that's going to be purely local, 100% locally based retail. So it'll be Sabrina with Chua Vintage doing vintage clothing. It will be Samantha Soleil with Zorka Rose Vintage doing vintage decor and home goods. And then it will be Nikki Kragel with Timberline Jewelry and her husband Sam as well. And they'll be doing kind of a jewelry front. And then the three of you will be running the Ock Market and also getting sub-vendors in to rotate in and out to allow very small kind of micro makers of Gainesville to see what they can do in a retail space.
Oh, that's really, really
Very
cool.
One of
Oh,
the
yeah.
challenges, you know, is when you're first starting out, is to have just the availability to put your stuff out there. You know, that's why it's like pop-ups are so great, because most people can't afford to get into a retail space. It's
Yeah.
prohibitively expensive, and for most people. And so, you know, giving people an opportunity to be able to put their goods out there, put their art, put the things that they're passionate about, and then giving Gainesville an opportunity, or, you know, to be able to buy this locally made stuff is so important. You know, people don't want to necessarily go online to buy everything. You know, having that face-to-face interaction and touching and feeling it and supporting local business is really important.
Do you have a team, Sabrina?
I do have a team, a very small team, but we are a team. I've actually, that was one of the challenges, you know, starting my own business is navigating people, right? And I think that's like that probably is the biggest challenge is, so I've gone through different, and I'm very much like friend boss, and so I've had to learn how to not be so much friend boss and be like actual boss. And so right now I have a really good team. I have one of my people, her name's Ashley. Shout out to Ashley. She's also interning for me, and she really helps with the social media and just helping every day. And then I have my other person, Justin. So we are a team of 3, and yeah, it's good to have a little bit of support. You know, I'm a mom as well. I have 2 children, so it's very hard to balance all of that. So I can't be at the shop all the time. So, you know, it's good to have people that I can rely on to like be there and take care of stuff for me, so I can like step back and have a little bit of a personal life.
I'd love to kind of jump down this avenue real quick about, you know, where you said like friend boss. This is something that is super, super tough in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, for sure.
I 100% struggle with it. I very much, if there's something that I struggle, it's holding other people accountable, because I don't like to be confrontational.
Yeah.
I like to be like, hey, why don't you show up and like do your job and do it well, and everything will be great.
Talk to you again.
Why do I have to get onto you about being on, or like, why do I even have to like say like, oh, like you should come to your job, like you should come do that, like, you know, it's like it should be, you know.
Exactly. So I'm super interested in this. I mean, are you friends with your team members, and does that like go outside of work? Like, do you hang out outside of work? Is it, you know, like, or is it very much like, yeah, we're like, they're my friends, but it's at work, and I still like say, you know, I still hold them accountable. And
yeah, it's definitely like I'm leaning more towards that than I was at first. It was like, oh, you work for me and we hang out and like this, you know, but that's not always. It's good to have a little bit of separation. Like, I want to be there for them, and if they need anything, I'm there, and I am their friend. I care about their lives, but just having a little bit of separation where it's like, when we're here, we're doing business, you know. We're not talking about other things, or like we're here to focus on what we're doing. So, and then just having that separation, because I don't want to see these people like all the time, and they don't want to see me all the time either, I would suppose, you know. So, yeah, just having that balance.
yeah, Melissa, what about you? How do you feel about it?
Well, I would say that my direct staff that I supervise I love them all dearly, and I admire them, and I have a ton of fun with them at work. I pretty much never see them outside of work, and I think that's really just a lifestyle gap. They're like young budding artists, most of them, and just remarkable people that have like a social life, and I am usually like either with my son or, you know, running around managing everyone. But I will say that with our new collaboration in the Ock Market, these three women are dear friends to me, and I've known them all for a very long time and bought their things and hung out with them at the beach, and, you know, like the spectrum is wide with them, but we're all collaborating intentionally together, and so there's an incredible amount of professionalism that we carry when we are together working on business, and then we can kind of ease out of that into a social atmosphere if we want to, but
Yeah.
we really
But we're
are.
all kind of more equals, you know. We're coming into it very like purely like we're collaborating
True.
and just propping each other up. So it's not like, I mean, there's things that you have to manage with us, and there's things that we put out there for you guys,
Right.
but like it's definitely more of an equal footing versus, you know, like somebody who's your employee and you write them a paycheck, and, you know,
Right. It's a
you're
very
right. That's a
different
little
dynamic,
different,
yes.
right? It's like, all right, I'm paying you, like, just please do your job.
And honestly, when we knew that we were closing the restaurant for the summer and reinventing the concept, which we'll get to, I'm sure, but I knew that we needed to do something with the space that was highly interactive, because the whole point of this beautiful property is that we want people kind of roaming and enjoying the space, indoor and outdoor. And these were the first three women I thought of, because I admire them in a professional level, and so that sets a whole different tone too, because I think all three of you are remarkable entrepreneurs and have brought incredible, like, the aesthetic that they bring to the table is so important for us or for any storefront or retail space, you know, and they all three just like nailed it in every way, you know.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, it's a topic that I'm interested in, is that you know, cool boss versus being the real boss, because I feel like I'm very much a cool boss. I'm very laid back, but at the same time, like, I'm super driven, and I have a lot of goals that I want to accomplish, and you're not going to get away with things, you know, especially maybe once, but like over and over and over again, like you're you know, if it goes against our values as an organization, you're
Right.
like, you're out.
Well,
Like,
yeah, if you're messing
out.
with your money, like, you know, I can't, you know, like, people, you put so much into your employees, and I don't think a lot of people realize that's how much employees actually cost, you know, not just with taxes, but time spent, training, and they're the face of your company. So if they aren't doing what they need to do, you know, and that took me a while to like think of it in that way, you know. And then it's like, well, I'm putting value into you. What are you giving back, you know? And it's like there's more responsibility as the boss, you know. You have to make sure that your employees are taken care of, you know. So it's like you want to make sure that like the people that you are doing that for are also giving back in a way, you know. So that's definitely a challenge, but you still want to be like the cool boss. You don't want to be like the boss that they go and they're like, oh my gosh, I hate her so much, she's just so evil, you know. You don't want to be that either, but there has to be a line where it's like, okay, I can be really direct and assertive with you and tell you why this is not working, or you know, like what you can do to improve. But
Yeah, I think that's just the part that I have the hardest time with. Is like I don't want to bring you into the office and sit down with you
Right.
and have that one-to-one conversation of you can't do this and here's why. I mean, I feel like a lot of times they know the rules, they know the values, they should act upon them, and I really hate those uncomfortable moments. And it's crazy because, you know, I think a lot of times entrepreneurship in general gets this perception of like, oh my God, like must be nice to be the boss, must, you know, having the authority like to actually fire somebody and like let somebody go. And I'm like, man, the worst part of what I do, the single worst part is that moment when I have to fire somebody.
Yes.
Like and I tell my team, I was like, please do not ever put me in a situation where I have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, because for me, it's the most uncomfortable thing that I have ever done. And so, like, I think sometimes, you know, entrepreneurship just has that perception of, oh, it must be nice to be the boss, when it's really not.
yeah,
that
or
great.
like, oh, you can do what you want, you know, you're an entrepreneur, you can set your hours, like nobody's there to tell you what to do. And it's like, that's a really lonely position sometimes though, because
Yeah.
there's nobody out there to like pay you, you know, if like there is like all on you.
I had a friend comment on or say something on Facebook one time that was, you know, it was just a post, and she goes, oh, it must be nice to be the boss and leave at 3 o'clock on Friday morning. I commented, I was like, I bet you didn't know he was there at 4 this morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's
I'm
true.
like,
Yeah.
that
It's true.
perception.
Or
You
just
don't get
the
to
time
leave it.
spent even at home. Like
Yeah.
I'm constantly communicating
Yeah.
at home. I'm constantly like, you know, our Curia is open from 7 a.m. until midnight. So I get calls every moment of the day. And, you know, it's usually nothing huge, but it's even a few minutes in knowing that I have to be available. That
Yeah.
alone takes its own toll.
That's why I
Yeah.
turned off my social media and like my internet when I get home. I refuse to be
Yeah.
on it anymore
Boundaries.
because
Oh,
it
that's
was like I
interesting.
felt like I was pretty much just always available, and I'm like, I have to have moments when I can cut it off, you know, just for my own sanity.
Yes.
So yeah, that was a new thing that I did, was just turn off my internet when I got
a
home
good
and
idea.
just didn't you know, wasn't a part of it. And so then when I'm in the shop, that's when all right, now I'm going to get back on my social media or answer emails or like do these things. But
How recently did you start doing that?
I started doing it like in July, and I don't think it's going to work out long term, especially with all that's been going on. Like, I definitely have to get stuff done at night, but I think as far as just doing it for a little bit, it was actually really good, is to just turn that off for a little bit and just be able to focus on like my kids when I'm at home and, you know, do those things. So but yeah, again, I don't think that's going to be a long-term thing that I could
But
do.
it is a very important concept, the concept of boundaries, right?
Yes,
like,
yes.
And that is, I think, a huge entrepreneurial experience is that with interacting with people, like being able to leave work and let people know that you are a human with other personal values, and you have to, you know, you have to set them, whatever they are or however they evolve.
Yeah.
It's important. It's
Yeah.
hugely important.
Ty, can you cut your social media time off, or is it, or is notification comes through, boom, you're right on it?
Yeah, you know, I try to do it, but I'm not very good at it.
Do you
You
even
know-
set any boundaries for yourself via social media?
Not really. You know, I think about trying to set boundaries. It just never works out. You know, but in the same light as kind of the Curia stuff, when I was in Vegas managing a ton of people, you know, a 24/7, 365 type of job, I was able to cut stuff like that out. I would turn off my phone and
Yeah.
email because it was the only way I could get away. But that was more from a managerial standpoint, running a business, not social media.
Well,
now with what
because-
I'm doing, it's a little different.
Were those things serving as like distractions to actually managing team members? Is that what you mean, or?
Just more, I was always the problem solver for any issue on any side of the business. And, you know, the only off days I ever truly had is if I left the city and I went somewhere else. People would be like, oh, he might not respond today. You know, otherwise it just fire it up. So I had to learn to set some boundaries and, you know, delegate tasks when I'm not there. It's like A, B, C, and D you can solve by yourself. If it gets to this level, then, you know, call me or whatever. But it's a battle trying to figure that out on the fly, especially managing different people, hiring different people, personalities. I can imagine at Curia with everyone's an entrepreneur. You know, it's just everyone's different. You got to learn what makes people tick and how to manage each and every person.
Kind of makes me
it's
think
difficult.
of the conversation we had with Ed Buckley from PeerFit.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think Maria was saying something about, you know, how they, you know, they say don't come to me with a problem, come to me with the solution.
With the solution. Yeah,
So it's like trying to create that mindset of, you know, you don't go running to daddy or mommy.
Yeah.
You know, when you have the problem, like just
Well, and I think it's about
solve it.
establishing the vibe and culture of your business, and then empowering those people to problem solve and trusting.
Right.
That's the
Will
big
take a
thing.
lot off your shoulders at the end of the day if you're willing to give up a little control.
Right.
Allowing your employees to have
Yeah.
the ability to make decisions, so you're not micromanaging everything
Absolutely.
that they're doing. That's a
Right.
huge thing, but that's a valuable employee too, you know.
Exactly.
Yes.
Those are
Someone
hard
who
to
can do-
find.
yes, they are. Good employees are hard to find.
Well,
They
and
are.
the thing that I've learned through that is that so many people, you know, you hear managers and leaders be like, "Oh, I really want to empower my team," like, you know, but then they do micromanage or you know, they do say, "Hey, no, like you go and make the decision," but when they make the decision that's not what the owner would have
Right.
made or the manager would have made, it's like you have to let them mess up. I mean,
Exactly.
you have to let them, like, if you're going to empower them to make the decision and they don't make the decision that you would have made, then, like, you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And that's where I see a lot of business leaders, like, struggling,
For sure.
in my personal opinion. So that's a super interesting topic. I could probably, like, talk about that
Yeah,
all
for
day.
sure.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to similarly jump down another path real quick, because I mean you guys work with a lot of creative people. Okay, now this is
That's what we do. That's what we
right.
do.
That's what you do for a living. You like lead creatives, and this is something that I'm fascinated by because, and let me tell you why. A few years ago, I brought in a web developer to really help us with some software build out, some things that we were doing here inside the dealership. And the guy was brilliant, super smart. And he and I constantly would have conflict with each other. And of course I go back and I look at it like this, it's all my fault. It's all my fault, right? Because I mean, I really was looking at this individual, and I was trying to, like, bring him into a culture that was super loud, like New Scooters for Less. I mean, we've got, like, loud colors everywhere during the day. There's a lot of, you know, loud music, and I mean, very creative in its own right. You know, super, just very eccentric, a little crazy at times, and a ton of fun. And it was really hard for this individual to kind of, like, mesh into that. You know what I mean?
From he was not creative enough, or
No,
like it
no,
wasn't-
no.
or he
Like,
was too
it was
creative?
just,
Like,
it was just completely, like, he was at his best when he was isolated and earphones on, like intensely focused.
Yeah.
You know, kind of, I would say, like, in his hole a little bit, just like just
Yeah.
doing his thing. And I made the mistake of really trying to, like, bring him into like our crazy environment, and that's what led to conflict, and ultimately like we still do some work together, which is awesome, but it's completely separate. Like, you know, he's in his environment, and we work way better now, like together. Like we're better friends, we're better like cool boss people than we were when he was in this environment, you know. And so I just, there's that challenge of working with creatives. So I'm constantly, and now with this new media company, I'm working with them all the time. So I'm just like kind of intrigued by I don't know, just like a story or two, or like any advice that you could give to other entrepreneurs who, you know, work in that kind of environment, in a very creative environment.
Like, you have to be really flexible, because the thing is like people who are artists and musicians normally have alternative lifestyles. So, you know, you have to be kind of going with the flow of, you know, these are people coming in at 8 o'clock in suits. You know, they have a lot going on, but that can be an asset too, you know, depending on what you're trying to create and try to do. So don't box people in, you know, don't say, okay, well, this is how most employees are. If you're trying to work with the creative type, you kind of have to be a little more flexible, you know, because you're getting that the creativity is what makes them different, you know, and it's like they're creating value through that. So, but it's a give and take, you know, and I think sometimes with creative people, you know, they get very passionate about what they do, which is, again, a good thing, but it's just different than if, like, again, like working as an accountant, you know, that was a different mindset, and not everybody is like good at working in those kind of environments. So giving people the opportunity to, and some people haven't even like reached their creative like vision yet. So like giving people the flexibility to be able to grow as well is really important if you want to have those kind of employees, because I feel like that would be the most frustrating like thing as a creative type, is to not be able to continue with a vision. You know, that would be super frustrating if you have this vision and it's not allowed, or it's just stifled. So, you know, being flexible and being open to just different types, if like that's the kind of person you're wanting to work with.
It's cool. I don't know if I've said this before, but like, one, at least where I'm at right now as a leader, I feel super, super honored to be working with these individuals. I mean, they're just so brilliant, and the way I've been describing it, especially with a marketing agency, has been, you know, like imagine being an artist and creating a beautiful painting and then putting it on the wall and then nobody ever getting to see it. And I get the distinct privilege and honor to, you know, take these, like, and it's a lot of video right now, like these works of art, and use social media, use these things that I've just built, you know, or have these platforms that I've used to build my organization here at New Scooters for Less, and now like with this new agency, like I have the honor of like exposing the world to their art, and I feel like, I mean, it's just such a privilege to do that, and I don't know, they're all brilliant. They all do like such amazing work, and it's super, super cool.
I think one caveat though with the creative type is sometimes creative types can be super flaky. So like super, super flaky. So it's important too, when you find somebody that you work with, it's that you continue to support them, and like, you know, people who are consistent and creative, that's even like, that's the ones you should, you know, continue to support and promote. Because I've definitely tried to like collaborate with many different kind of people, you know, because we do our social media and we take photographs and we have models and we're styling these photo shoots, and it is so hard to schedule stuff, you know, because people, yes, I can do that, and then people last minute, so many times it's just flaking out on stuff. So or maybe we'll take pictures and never send the pictures back, or like never give me my clothes back. So it's just, when you find consistent people and who are doing, like, who have this like amazing vision, those are the people that's like, all right, I'm going to keep those in my pocket. I've got your name in my book. We're definitely going to collaborate again, and I'm going to promote what you're doing because you're doing such a good job.
How do you get around that?
I don't know. I just go with the flow. Honestly, I feel like with a lot of things, it's like you can't get too like caught up when plans go. You know, you just like if you have like you have high expectations, but you don't get bothered by when they're not. Like you don't get too upset when it's not something on me. It's just sometimes plans fall through, and just continue to just. Making plans, continuing to do it, regardless of whether it works out this time or not, because eventually it will. Eventually we will be able to make the photo shoot happen or, make the market happen, having the vendors come in and stuff. It's just really communicating too. It's just, that's the biggest thing. It's just communicating with people and, so like not getting bothered by things, like overly bothered if it doesn't, and being flexible too. All right, so if like a vendor decides not to show up, I'm not going to get upset about that. I'm going to like come up with a creative solution on the fly and make it happen, just make it happen.
I think a big part too that a lot of people who start businesses or run businesses don't want to do because they are in this authoritative position to some degree is make requests of their employees and the people they work with as well. Like letting them know what they need is a big deal.
Yeah.
And if you can do it in a very clear and calm like manner at the outset, people want to support one another. We're naturally very communal. That's just the way humans are. And so a big part of the success I've had with working with people who consider themselves artists and creatives in many ways is just saying, okay, here's the role that I'm going to be taking at the business, and here's the role that you're going to be taking at the business, and here's the things I need, and I want to know the things that you need, and if we can both support each other in that way, I'll let you be as free and creative as you want. You'll have all the license you want. And I think that, like, for example, our coffee shop is so efficiently run, and it's because they're emotionally invested because they feel supported creatively, both in the coffee shop, because I will tell you, baristing is an art, and I did not know that going into this in the same way that I do now. But also in their social lives, when they're out and they're playing music till 2 a.m, and then they're coming and they've played their show and now they have to open at 6:30 in the morning. They still feel super supported, and I do as well. And I think that's a huge part of the harmony with working with creative people, from my experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like a lot of flexibility, definitely setting some expectations.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I started doing, and I don't know if this is necessarily right, I'm figuring out a lot of this.
Me too.
Was that I instead of saying I need this by this date, I started asking the question, when are you going to have that for me?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of gives them the flexibility, but it's still they're setting their own deadline.
For sure.
And I found that to work. I mean, at least for our type of, business, where it's like, when can I expect to have that video? When can I expect to have this project done? Like, that type of thing. And then having them set their own deadline has been working really, really well right now. So that's from my personal experience, I guess. But Ty, what else do you have, my brother?
So I wanted to cycle through all the stuff going on at Curia, because it's a lot, and I go there a fair amount. I work out of there sometimes as well. So you guys have on the drag, off the drag, is protocol. It's kind of an art gallery.
Yeah, it's kind of in a phase-out situation.
Okay.
We actually have what's been in there currently is a business called Celestial Sound.
Okay.
And the best way I would describe them is that they do kind of interactive and exploratory music. So they have it's basically a small music venue. They have a show or two a week, and then in the evenings, and a lot of our baristas go over there and perform, and some really just neat, super new conceptual musicians come and play.
And you can look up their line of events there, the Lemon Room. It's Limin, and you can see the calendar of shows that are going on follow them on their Instagram and their Facebook. But they have a lot of great local bands playing.
I just passed Ty a page that you had said something
Okay.
about a food truck or something.
Right.
this-
Okay, so a big new exciting thing
Okay.
that is just
give
so
us
time
give us all the
definitely.
new stuff.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
so we got
Here
a
we go.
confirmation on the date. We said October 22nd.
Oh,
is when this is going to air.
perfect.
So it's going to air right
Oh,
before November
perfect.
during
This is
all that time.
perfect,
Yeah.
So much going on.
Yeah. So what happened was, as we've been talking about basically managing staff and employees, and we had the restaurant off the drag, and unfortunately it was doing well financially, but sometimes that doesn't matter when there's a toxic environment, and it was super challenging because the people had basically become uninvested in what they were doing, and so people love the food, and I mean the staff. Let me clarify. So we had customers. We're making money. We're in the green, but it was just such a toxic situation that the owner Nick said, "This is not what I kind of envisioned in this dream that I had." And so together, when I had first kind of hired on, we were talking about what to do, and there were a lot of options on the table, but we decided we need to close the restaurant for the summer and just kind of regroup. Focus on making the coffee shop as best as it can be, focus on other elements of the property like the Chua Vintage and Celestial Sound. And when we did that, we had a lot of discussions going back to the beginning of like, what did you want? And I had fresh eyes, so I could look at Nick and say, what did you want this to be? What were you thinking when you started this restaurant? And he was like, well, really, the entire property is vegan, and except for the coffee shop, we offer raw milk or cow's milk to people. But he was like, the whole point is exposing veganism to Gainesville. And we're not trying to get everyone to convert to veganism. We not necessarily anything like that, but just showing that like there is a way to like not eat animal products and still enjoy your meal, and have a good time. But he was like, we never meant for this to be a restaurant. In fact, it's street food. That's what it's always been. And so I had said to him, well, you have an entire property of like a park. You basically have a park where people want to be outside. They want to utilize the space. Why do you need it in a building? And all of our light bulbs went off, and we went, oh my God, this is what it needs to be, is we need to make this building reach its potential by having the Ock Market in it, which is what it evolved to. And put a food truck out on the property, get everybody out and around. And so it is going to be, so that's what's coming up. And grand opening is homecoming weekend, November 2nd. Yeah.
And the
Oh,
bar is
wow.
going to be open in the back, Dad's Bar.
Yeah, so you can drink and shop and eat and drink and
And
shop
go see
and
a
eat.
show, go do some yoga.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot of infrastructure we're putting in right now. We're doing a lot of pavement in order to make indoor-outdoor seating. We're opening up the building to the outside, which is going to be remarkable. We're going to have the food truck. We're having cabanas built, these mobile cabanas. And there's even been some talk of having a Curia app, which we are kind of in the midst of creating, which will be an interactive experience on the property where you can be in your cabana, you can be in shopping, and if you want to order food from the food truck or order something from the coffee shop or from the bar and get it run out to you, you can.
Very cool.
It's going to be amazing, yeah.
But
So-
we also have the evening markets too. So like,
Yes.
so that's like we kind of haven't really touched on that, but I feel like that's a very important thing that
And
we're
there's one
doing as
this
well.
week. I know it'll air, but there's one this Friday.
Yeah, there's
Right.
the one this
Yeah.
Friday, and we've started from very small, like maybe 5 or 6 vendors, to now we have over 20. There's a DJ, and it's just the best of Gainesville, really.
Is this like a once a week thing? Or
It's a once a month.
Once a month.
We
Fir-
do it on the
first
first
Friday,
Friday, and it's from 5 to 10. So it's a night market. So you have a sip on some glass of wine, walk around the market, and there's there's people who make jewelry, there's people who make art, there's people who sell vintage clothing and vintage furniture. So you have a pretty wide shopping experience that you're not really going to get. Like going to the mall, you're not going to get this kind of independent local shopping
Right.
experience like you will get, and it's fun,
It's so much fun.
Yeah, so I really recommend anybody who's listening, come out on November 2nd, get some goods, some really interesting items, and we're also going to do one in December, so you can get some really amazing items that are just like special gifts or special things for yourself that you're not going to be able to get anywhere else. And you're supporting the local community. You're supporting local artists
purely
and
local,
vendors.
which is pretty remarkable. I mean, we don't really have that in Gainesville at this point.
And there's so much talent. That's the thing. There's so much talent in this town.
So much talent.
And it just needs to showcase so that people know that it exists. And that's why I like the evening park is probably one of the things that I'm like most proud of doing, because it really does bring the community together in a real way.
I think you're always going to win when you can build experiences. Like, people just love to experience things.
Yeah. And
that's like, I mean, that's why we've said it as one of our number one core values: create and recreate that ultimate customer experience.
Right.
So mad props to you guys. Like, I love it. And the one thing that I know for a fact, I mean, it's like this with social media, and it's like, when you do something and you do it consistently, that's when you're going to really start building, a following. People constantly, they start to expect it. So if they're expecting it the first Friday of every month, like, it's that's when the word of mouth starts happening, because it's like, hey, first Friday of every month. First Friday
and
of the month.
Gainesville's so good at that.
Yeah.
We are like, we have this incredible base. Oh, we just
hungry.
We love
hungry.
supporting our own community, which is, I feel like, really unique. I'm so grateful for this community for that reason.
Yeah, me too.
I think like the indie flea markets kind of proved it out.
Yeah.
And I've done some stuff with them, and they're down at Armature Works now in Tampa, and they've got hundreds of vendors.
Yeah.
And
well,
I know
that was one of the things I started doing Indie Flea. That's how I started. And it was very like, and I love Indie Flea people. They are fantastic.
but it
and they
wasn't
have a great-
controlled from Gainesville,
Exactly.
which is what
and
it needs
the
to be.
vendors though too. I was like, I would be one of the only vendors from Gainesville.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know there's so many people
Yeah.
here, and why aren't they a part of this? And it's just like, I think sometimes Gainesville has this very like rough exterior too, where we're a little like, like we're too punk for that, and so it's like people are a little skeptical sometimes, so it's like letting people, just kind of giving them the opportunity, and it's like, it's safe, guys,
Sabrina,
like
you've definitely been the visionary for these evening markets. Like, we as Curia wanted to jump on because the property lends itself to that so perfectly, and we love being accommodating in terms of food and all that, but it was your vision to keep everything Gainesville and bring people in, and it's because you have such an incredible kind of business social network that you've built pretty much from scratch, from ground up, which is remarkable. And that's what's exciting about like even our homecoming weekend opening, is that we've had enough time to do, that'll be our 5th, right, on November 2nd, and so it's been enough time consistently to really build a base where we're going to have an entire kids section and kids market. We're going to have the property ready.
That's cool.
Yeah, we're going to have all of our 20 plus vendors or more, and food, and it'll just be, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's really.
Off market will be open all weekend.
Yeah. We're
And forever after
selling
that.
drinks, selling clothes.
Yeah.
We're doing all of it. Yep.
Cool. Well, I absolutely can't wait to see it. You guys, thank you.
Please come by.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for all of your incredible insight on topics that I'm like super interested in. That
thank
was
you.
great. And that was kind of a direction that we hadn't gone before. So I loved it. And do you have any last minute things, man?
No, just let us know where we can find you all, and keep in mind the new places we can find you all, since it's going to air on the 22nd.
Yeah.
So social media and stuff.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have at Curia on the Drag is our Instagram, and Curia on the Drag Facebook.
Okay.
The Ock Market is
theockmarket.com, and then Ock_market for Instagram. We have the evening markets if you want to sign up as a vendor, or just to know what dates things are coming up. It's theeveningmarkets.com. And then WHOA Vintage, please follow me on my Instagram. We do some really great things, and we like to showcase what the face of the community looks like. So that's WHOA_vintage.
And if you want some vintage gator gear that nobody else has in town, that's where to go find it. Yeah.
Well, when you were asking earlier, like, well, it's hard to buy, vintage stuff for other people. I'm like, if anybody wants to buy me a vintage Gator t-shirt, I wear size large. You can send it to 633 Northwest 13th Street.
There you go.
But
You're
Thank
gonna
you
get
guys.
like 30 of them.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be
Actually,
awesome.
like the greatest gift, so I appreciate the shirt because the greatest gift that I've been receiving like are T-shirts from everybody who's been on this show. I mean, like the community, the business community has been, creating my wardrobe. So I'm very, very, very appreciative. So again, thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
And Gainesville, we'll see you later. This is the WHOA GNV Podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa. We'll see you later. Bye.